8 volunteer crew head out into the stormy waters of the English Channel. The helicopter picks up a radio message that 4 men have been taken on board, and that's the last contact with the crew of the Penlee Lifeboat. The RNLI lifeboat Solomon Browne was a Watson-class lifeboat owned and operated by the Royal National Lifeboat Institution in the UK. 8 volunteers from the small coastal village of Mousehole crewed the Solomon Browne, which was based at the Penlee RNLI lifeboat station. The fishing port of Mousehole is on the western shore of Mounts Bay, just 2.5 miles south of Penzance, which is the largest town in the southernmost part of Cornwall. 18 of the Watson-class lifeboats were built between 1955 and 1963 and were in service with the RNLI until 1993. 2 were lost in service and 16 retired at the end of their expected life. The Solomon Browne is classed as a non-self-righting displacement hull lifeboat, which means if it capsizes, it won't flip back over on its own. It measured 14 meters long and 4 meters wide with a draft of 1.35 meters of water. The lifeboat had a range of 280 nautical miles and a top speed of 9 knots. On the 17th of December 1981, motor vessel Union Star departs Holland on its maiden voyage. Union Star was a brand new vessel registered in Dublin, Ireland and classed as a coastal mini-bulk steel-hulled vessel. It was built in 1981 by the engineering company Norse Verftet in Denmark, which specializes in dredging vessels. The ship measured 70 meters long with a beam of 11 meters and a draft of 3.4 meters. It was driven by a 7-cylinder, 4-stroke diesel engine with a single shaft and propeller, producing a top speed of 10 knots. Union Star enters the North Sea 24 miles northwest of Amsterdam. The vessel is under the command of Captain Henry Morton along with 4 crew. It's carrying a cargo of agricultural fertilizer. After crossing the North Sea to the Essex coast of England, Union Star makes an unscheduled stop at the coastal town of Brightlingsea just north of the Thames River estuary. 3 passengers board the ship: Captain Morton's wife Dawn and his 2 teenage stepdaughters Sharon and Deanne. It's the Christmas holidays and they're joining him for the maiden voyage to Arklow on the east coast of Ireland, about 56 miles south of Dublin, which is the vessel's home port. After picking up his family, Captain Morton sets a course south through the Straits of Dover and down the English Channel along the south coast of England. Captain Morton's passage plan will take the vessel around southern England, passing Mousehole between Lizard Point and Land's End at the southernmost point of the UK, before turning north to Ireland. Over the 18th and 19th of December, Union Star sails steadily down the south coast of England. At 1800 on the 19th, Union Star is 8 miles east of Wolf Rock on the Cornish coast. The wind picks up, gusting at over 100 miles per hour, which is hurricane force 12 on the Beaufort scale. The waves build to 18 meters high. In the rolling swell and intense wind, the vessel's engine is contaminated by seawater and fails. The ship's engineer, George Sedgwick, can't get it going again. The vessel is at the mercy of the storm.
Land's End Coast Guard, loaded. Land's End Coast Guard. Union Star, calling Land's End Coast Guard. Union Star, this is Solomon Coast Guard. Over. Yes, we're off. Approximately now 8 miles east of Wolf Rock. Engines have stopped and we are unable to get them started at the moment.
Captain Morton radios the Coast Guard to let them know the situation, but he doesn't send out a mayday call. The tugboat Noord-Holland overhears the exchange and offers to assist under the Lloyd's open form contract. Captain Morton declines the offer. At a time like this, where a ship might need emergency assistance, there's no time to have the lawyers draw up a contract, and so the Lloyd's open form contract is a standardized salvage contract that's widely used to fast-track a decision. The salvage tug would have a right to make a claim on the value of the cargo and the ship if it succeeds in rescuing the ship. The actual value of the contract will be worked out later by a group of people who specialize in this field of law. Captain Morton speaks to the owners of the ship. They tell him it would be better to settle a salvage insurance claim than lose the ship, and so he radios the North Holland tug and requests their assistance. On board the Union Star, Captain Morton, his wife, 2 stepdaughters and 4 crew are being blown across Mounts Bay towards the rocks of Boscawen Cliffs near the village of Lamorna. Now Captain Morton makes a mayday call, which is picked up by the Falmouth Coast Guard Station. The Coast Guard Station tries to contact Penlee Lifeboat Station, which is the closest station to Union Star, but they don't reach them immediately. Given how close the Union Star is to shore, Falmouth Coast Guard requests air support from the 820 Naval Air Squadron based at the Royal Navy Air Station Culdrose, around 12 miles east of the ship. A Royal Navy Sea King helicopter is dispatched with 4 aircrew. The pilot, Lieutenant Commander Russell Smith, is on secondment from the US Navy. Coast Guard Station Falmouth also gets in contact with Trevelyan Richards, coxswain of the Royal National Lifeboat Solomon Browne at the Penlee Lifeboat Station. They tell him to put the lifeboat on standby, ready to launch if needed. Before long, word spreads through the village that the lifeboat's on standby, and by the time the coxswain reaches the lifeboat station, 12 volunteer crewmen of the Solomon Browne are already waiting for him. Coxswain Trevelyan knows the sea conditions are going to make this a dangerous rescue, and so he selects 7 of the best men from the 12 volunteers. 3 volunteers are from the same family. Trevelyan refuses to risk more than 1 family member and selects only 1 of the 3. Arriving overhead of Union Star, the Sea King helicopter finds the vessel rolling and pitching so violently in the wild seas that the helicopter comes close to being knocked out of the sky by the ship's mast. The Sea King lowers its rescue winch, but after several failed attempts to hoist crew and passengers off the vessel, Lieutenant Commander Smith decides it's too dangerous to make any further attempts. And so, 2 hours after the mayday call is made, the order is given to launch Solomon Browne. Union Star has drifted within 2 miles of the rocky coastline. Solomon Browne launches from its base at 2012. The crew fight their way out through the mountainous waves and howling wind into Mounts Bay and on towards the drifting Union Star. The Royal Navy helicopter watching over Union Star guides the lifeboat to the scene. Union Star has already lost 1 anchor to the storm and is desperately clinging to its position as Solomon Browne fights to get close to the ship. For half an hour, the lifeboat makes attempt after attempt to come alongside the ship. Finally, the coxswain forces his lifeboat alongside, allowing his crew to hurl ropes to the ship. From the helicopter, Lieutenant Commander Smith sees the dark shadows of people wearing fluorescent life jackets running across the deck and leaping onto the lifeboat, where they're caught and safely held by the crew. Solomon Browne radios the helicopter. The radio message from Penlee Lifeboat says there are 4 taken on the lifeboat and 2 left on board the ship, but I counted 8 people needing rescue. The captain plus 4 crew, along with the captain's wife and 2 stepdaughters. Smith, the Sea King's pilot, assumes the lifeboat will now head for home, so he turns the helicopter away and sets course for base. But it's possible that Trevelyan Richards decides to make one final attempt to get everyone off Union Star. Penlee Coast Guard Station radios back to its lifeboat, but there's no response. Nothing more is ever heard from either Solomon Browne or Union Star, and the lights from Solomon Browne disappear from sight within the next 10 minutes. At the Royal Navy Air Station Culdrose, Smith refuels his helicopter and flies back out over Mounts Bay to search for Solomon Browne. Lifeboats from RNLI bases at Sennin Cove, the Lizard, and St. Mary's are also dispatched. At daybreak on the 20th of December, Union Star was discovered capsized on the rocks west of Tatadoo Lighthouse. Over the following days, wreckage from Solomon Browne began to wash up on the shore of Mounts Bay. Some of the bodies of the 16 people lost in the disaster were never recovered. Trevelyan Richards, the coxswain of Penlee Lifeboat, was posthumously awarded the RNLI's gold medal, and the remainder of the crew were awarded bronze medals. The disaster prompted a massive public appeal and raised over £3 million for the town of Mousehole to rebuild its lifeboat. That's over $15 million today. The government decided to tax the donations, but that idea was quickly stopped by public outcry that swept the country. Within a day of the disaster, enough residents of Mousehole had volunteered to form a new crew for their lifeboat.